I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. Kassy LaBorie is a principal consultant at Kassy LaBorie Consulting and the original virtual training hero. She's an author, speaker, instructional designer, and classroom facilitator who specializes in virtual instructor-led training design, delivery, and technology. Kassy is on a mission to rid the world of boring slides, reading lectures, and passive live online participations. And with that, over to you, Kassy.
Thank you so much, Alna. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for coming to the last session of Adobe eLearning World today. Yay! I love the chat. If any of you have ever been with me before, you know I'm going to watch it and pay attention to it, and so thank you for already getting it going. And I just can't wait to hear what you think about virtual training and also what your opinions are around whatever advanced virtual training might be. So let's go take a look. Welcome to Advancing Your Virtual Facilitation Skills. I can't wait to see what you think about all of this. I am a virtual classroom master trainer, and I get to teach people like yourself all over the world how to be virtual trainers. And the best thing about that is that my mother finally knows what I do after, what's happened over the last, 18 months. She never knew ever. She thought I was in like web development or something. Can any of you virtual facilitators out there relate to that? People not even, yeah, Deandra, you know. So hey, now we know. So advancing your virtual facilitation skills. Uh, I have been wondering about this. I've been doing this since the late 90s. I've been helping people. I was a Microsoft trainer, and then I became a person who worked at another company that is called WebEx, and that's where I learned how to do this. And then I discovered Adobe Connect and have never looked back. But I love this. I didn't always, think that this is where I would end up, but I do come at it from a technical background. But when I start looking at, now that there's so many people paying attention to what virtual training is, the next obvious question is, well, what's next? Where do we go from here? And I think it's not the features. I personally think it's how we sound. I'm not talking about only technically how we sound, though that's an element. It's what we look like, not only on camera, but also, what we show and what we have people look at. And then also, importantly, what we're having people do. What are they doing when they're here? And why did you make them put this on their calendar to be here live at this moment? And all of this leads up to what I think is the most important part of all of advancing our skills, and that's the relationships that we're building with our participants when we teach online, and that's going to be how people feel. I think that comes from how you're focusing on the emotional side of things. I don't know. Let's see what you think about that. I'm super curious, and I have a whole bunch planned. And I also want to learn a little bit more about what your experience has been like doing virtual training over the last little bit of time. How's it going? How has virtual training been to you? And it'd be really easy for me to ask you to start typing in the chat, which some of you are already jumping on, which please continue to do. But I have another question for you in a little bit of a different way. This is one of my favorite openers, and I just put it up here pretty quick so you can go to it. We'll come back to the chat in a sec. But which image would you say best describes your last virtual training experience? And I have the results already broadcast so you can see where people are. And after you've responded, note that there's a separate chat down at the bottom for you to explain why in a few words. I just love this kind of opener where you have images that you ask people to respond to that's related to what you're teaching, what you're doing. When I'm in a virtual training, I typically have, smaller groups of people. Usually in my case, it's less than 20. And we are all on webcam together. We all come off of mute together and we're talking. So I may use annotation tools and have people type, right directly on the slide, like something like that. I might do that and then I have them come off mute and explain. With a larger group like ours today, I decided to do the poll and the chat. We have all sorts of reasons. It's like we are all over the place. I think that actually you've chosen every single image, with three of you having had a lightning storm. Yeah, it's really neat. We're kind of all over the place, aren't we? I also have used this exact same set of images for teaching people how to be producers. You know, shout out to my producers today, Alistair and Alna, and a few other folks who I see who are here today, making sure that everything's working so I can focus on you and your responses. Oh my gosh. Are you enjoying reading what other people have written in the chat too? We have stories ranging from all over the place, very positive experiences, and also others that are quite challenging at the same time. But you know, it's really interesting. Let's go back to our main chat, and thank you for adding all of your different experiences. Which role did you have when you did experience that? That's another thing that could also end up influencing what that virtual training was like. Were you the trainer? Were you the designer, the producer, the manager, or maybe you had a different role, which feel free to add that into the chat if I didn't include it in the poll. Yeah, the bulk of our audience today are trainers, or at least in the last time you were in a virtual training, that was the experience that you were having. I know. Amy asked me, why not all of the above? Well, technically you could. That's why I had other there. But I was trying to go for what was your primary role in that one moment. But yeah, certainly you could be all of them. That can have an influence on, what your virtual training experience can end up being like. Thank you for that insight also on what role you currently play and who you are within this environment that we now live in all the time. So in order to look at how we advance our skills, no matter what our previous experiences have been up until this point, why don't we baseline what a typical virtual training looks like? And I'm curious, maybe I'll take this over to agree or disagree as I go through it. This is, in my experience, what I see the typical virtual training looking like nowadays. Right? If you were to roll this back, when I started teaching online, it was not everyone on camera. In fact, don't touch the camera, it will break everything. But today, pretty common for most of us to be on the camera. The trainers that are doing the most talking, most of you are muted. A lot of times I'm asking you to hold your questions till the end. Maybe I'll throw in some polls, probably a lot of chat. If I watched Alistair's last session, I am going to do some breakouts, but I hope I don't run out of time. Alistair, you remember I mentioned that time, one of the most important pieces for breakouts. And
It's where I
you
struggle the
know,
most.
I did a breakout the other day with 3 minutes remaining, only because I promised I would, but I knew it wasn't right. So, and then, you know what, it's recorded, so I'll just watch the training again later. Maybe I won't even attend because I'll just catch the recording and maybe even the dreaded copy of the slides. And usually because these software platforms like Adobe nowadays let us have so many attendees, I'm going to bring them all in here so I don't have to teach this over and over again. And you know what? I know people can't really take it longer than about 2 hours. What do you think? I mean, this is generally speaking. I know there's variations all of this, but do you generally agree that this is what the typical virtual training then looks like? Yeah, except for the everyone on camera part. Okay, yeah, people are still adjusting to that, that's for sure. It kind of depends on the technology you're using, and it also depends on what you're teaching and the systems that and the environments that you're in. But that's becoming increasingly more popular every moment that goes by. Some of us are tired of being on the camera too, aren't we? 40 hours straight? Oh my goodness. So I guess, the question becomes, if this is what virtual training is, what's advanced? What comes next? What do you think? Why don't you go to the chat? Like when you think about advancing your virtual training skills, your virtual facilitation skills, what would that be? Is it automatically an advanced virtual training if we use breakout rooms? Hmm. So it's advanced if I'm interactive. So are we, is that all I have to do? Is all I have to do is just do what I'm doing right now and it's advanced? I'd love to challenge you on that. Isn't that great? I think interaction should be there. I think that if you're not interacting, people aren't listening to you at all. That is now a baseline. And I think in order to advance, we've got to start really starting to move into the world of collaboration within our virtual training. You know, training being different than a presentation, right? Allowing people to build skills and have an opportunity to test those. And in order to do all of that, they need to be engaged. I know, I know. So from what I'm seeing, from what you're writing in the chats, it's a lot of, it's not only the features, is it? It's what we're choosing to do and how we're paying attention to people. Are we centering it around the learner's experience? Are we Are we looking beyond the expected, which right now the expected is what I listed back there. Let's just go back to it for a second, just to look at it. Look, this is now expected. If you're not doing these things, people are going to think, well, this person doesn't exactly know yet how to be here. Because this is, for lack of a better word, maybe basic. Okay? Isn't that interesting to think about that? All right, so let's look at engagement. What exactly is engagement? Is it fun? Is it a party? What exactly is it? And I love this definition. If you want to get lost on Googling things on the internet, go type in learner engagement or learner-centered training, and you'll be there until next week, probably. But right now, look at this. Learner engagement is the ability to motivationally and behaviorally engage in an effective learning process. This one comes from the SUNY Empire State College here in New York. I really like this one. There are so many definitions, but this one spoke to me. And I think that this is the path forward in advancing our facilitation skills in the virtual classroom. All the features help us do it, but it's not only that. I think that we pay attention to how people feel, and that's going to help us advance. That's going to help us get to really having effective learning experiences here that are changing how people behave and ultimately what's motivating them to do that. So how do you go about doing that? How is it done? Like this guy wants to know. I think we have to pay attention to how we sound, and I know that sounds a little bit basic, but there's a couple of angles on that, and you'll see what I mean. What we look like, what we're showing people, and most importantly, what we're having people do, right? What do people do when they come here? Because if you're having them just sit and listen, it's not that engaging. And all of this comes together with how we use the features of whatever technology we are using. How are you using all the amazing features that are built into Adobe Connect to allow you to not only connect with people all over the world, but to allow them to connect with one another as well? It's good stuff. Alistair, do you mind? There are so many awesome chats coming through. Is there anything in there that you're seeing as a standout in the commentary as they're coming through today?
I'm seeing a few that are really interesting, including this example from Patricia, um, working with a team that did 6 to 8 hour virtual trainings over 3 or 4 days, doing activities and then coming back and testing at the end. Being able to kind of separate this out, being able to go away, come back, can be helpful
Yeah.
because there's so much about the technology itself, isn't there?
There is so much. I mean, so we're talking about getting into having, how do people feel and what's happening, and some of that's about time, time in seat. But some of it's also like what Kathy just mentioned. I cannot stay on a class that's online where the microphone's no good. Just for some curious anecdotal data with our group here today, how long do you stay on a webinar where the audio is poor quality? Or on a virtual training where the audio is poor quality? How long will you all stay? There you go, guys. Anecdotal data right at your fingertips. Not long is the short answer. But yes, all these things, we got to bring them together. So how do we do this? What can we do about this? And this right here, look at this girl. She sounds great. She's probably a singer. I'm not suggesting that you need to be a singer, but I am suggesting that you need to up your game on your equipment. Alistair, what kind of mic do you use? Because you sound, of course, perfect.
Well, thank you very much. I use a Rode Procaster,
Mhm.
on a boom attached to my desk. Now, I don't think you need that to sound good, but I like having something that's hands-free. I didn't want a headset, and I certainly didn't want to use the microphone that was built into my laptop or webcam. Having something just with a little more quality is important for me.
Yeah, and you also do a lot of e-learning development. You do podcasting and interviews, so there's things where you need extra sound to be paying attention to as well. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me. I have the basic headset today just to demonstrate how good this thing sounds for all of you. And I have a picture of it on my slide. This thing was $30 and I've had it for over a year. It's very simple, very basic, but it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? It's nice and clear.
It sounds
It's
fantastic.
great, and it's just a simple little thing, you know. My husband has that Yeti, that blue Yeti that's in the middle, and actually, I also have this other one. Look, it's actually sitting right here. This is my BB-8 cousin, the cousin of BB-8 here. I love this. It's hands-free too, and I don't have to have it on my head. But I just have different ones, and the important thing here is to have something more than what Alistair just said, the built-in mic. Not going to usually be good enough. And also these dangling earbuds that you guys keep wearing. Those are fine for listening, but when you're the presenter or the facilitator, you need to up your game. It is time. People are no longer accepting poor audio. You saw how long they stay here. And second, what's connected to your audio is also your connection. This idea that your Wi-Fi is enough is a risk. Wi-Fi might be enough, but I just want to show you something here. This is just a quick screenshot of what my internet connection was the other day. And you can see there's some numbers floating around in there, and I'm not super high tech when it comes to this stuff. But note that importantly, my download speed is up above the 400, which is good enough. It's great, in fact, because look at when I unplugged it and went to Wi-Fi, my download speed went down to this 37 number. And what this will ultimately mean is that my voice is potentially going to be cutting out or doing that thing where it sounds like I'm like maybe underwater with a lot of bubbles. So paying attention to your connection as well as the quality of your mic is important. And I know that in some ways this sounds like, why is she going over this? But be honest for a second. The last time you went to a training, did the person sound perfect? I mean, today everyone sounded perfect, right? But did they? It's amazing to me how people aren't yet paying attention to this, and I just want to really reiterate, we got to start paying attention to this. Yeah, routers, all the different things you might have to, Devin. I've got a router going on in my home too, in my home office today, just because I've got several of them put throughout my house because of just what needed to happen. So just making sure you've got enough connectivity and you've got high quality equipment to make it sound great. All right. Okay, Kathy, look it's as if I've hired Kathy to be here with me, you guys. Look, it's not only the technology and how you sound and the quality, but it's also the way you use your voice. Exactly. So this is so important. And I wanted to share with you a quick activity here. In my job, what I do teaching people to be virtual trainers, facilitators, and presenters, one of the activities that I love to use is right here, and I wanted to share it with all of you today, is paying attention to how you use your voice and the sound of it. And so something as simple as this, I actually need to go off the camera to demonstrate what this is like, but when I bring people together in groups, what I'll do is have each person try exactly what I'm going to do with you right now. So I'm going to go off the camera for a moment, and you should see that the poll is up. And I think, is this poll broadcasting the results? Let me move it over a little bit so we can see. You can't vote yet. I
It's
haven't.
not yet, but I can turn that on if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could. For some reason, it's not showing on mine. I would love that.
There we go.
Thank you. You can't vote yet, you guys. I haven't said it. Let's clear out the poll. Thank you, Alistair, for doing that for me. Let's clear it out and reopen it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say who has the first question. And I'm interested in then you voting and telling me which way I have said it. There are 9 different expressions on your screen right now. So here we go. Who has the first question? Nailed it. Alistair, I did it. That's good.
99%.
You all voted for pouting, and I, in fact, was going for pouting. Okay. Um, you guys, could I put Alistair on the spot here? I did not even prep him for this. Do you want to try it for us too, Alistair? See what you can do? All you need to do
I
is
would love
say,
to.
all you get to
Let me
say is
end
who
the
has
poll
the
here.
first question. Just one, in one of 9 ways so that they can guess which one you did. Thank you.
Who has the first question?
Oh man, you're so nice. I can't tell if that was angry or evil, but man.
Honestly, I think it would have been the same regardless.
Yeah. Which one were you going for?
I was going for angry, but evil's a close second.
It certainly is. I mean, and most of the votes were in fact for angry, and so that is what we're hearing. And so you can see what I do with this activity is helping people to play with their voices. And everyone, let's just give a virtual round of applause to Alistair for doing that with no warning. Thank you so much. Yes. All right. So let's think about this for just a moment. What does it take to be able to hear these different things? And so let's start with that, and let's take this to the chat. In order to be able to hear what I'm trying to convey ultimately, what am I having to do with my voice? What kind of things do I need to pay attention to? Yeah, it's all about emotion and tone and pace and pitch. It's all of these things. Now, let's be honest, agree or disagree, I suppose I could go there. You thought of this the last time that you were training? You thought about your pace, your tone, and your emotion last time you taught something in Adobe Connect? You took time to prep your voice. Are you being honest? Right? No, it's like, come on, I was mostly thinking about the technology. Look at Tina Marie says, yes. Aw, you guys are wonderful facilitators. You're paying attention. I don't know. I've been to a lot of virtual training that sounds like this. And let's see some more agree disagrees here if we could clear them out. Hey everyone, welcome to the training. I'm gonna pull up my slides right now and I'm hoping, can you guys see my slides? And what we're gonna do in the next moment. Oh wait, am I on camera? Oh, hi everybody. 100%. Okay, so wait, is that me paying attention to how I sound or what? Yeah. All right. So, all right, you get it. So, how does an activity like this one with these facial expressions help us to pay more attention to that? What do we learn from it? And thinking about something like this is a way to advance your facilitation skills. It's just another way. You saw me in the beginning bring in some images and ask a question, and you responded to the answer. This particular one says, let's take images and have people respond to it, react to it, and do what it's doing. So, it's like a different angle on the same idea. I heard Joe Cook talking about how much she loves to use images in her virtual training design, and I do too. There's so much that helps people feel more comfortable and better able to relate when you can bring in images. I have one more very important question for you on this activity. What happens when you are misunderstood? What happens if I was acting confused, but I was actually surprised? And what if they heard confused, but I was just surprised? How do I know how I can manage this or what I can do? I mean, I kind of feel completely overwhelmed by that, to be perfectly honest. Here I am trying to teach my class, trying to not break it, right? And somebody's going to misunderstand me based on my tone. Okay, Bobby's onto it. If you want to know, you just ask. So I'm going to have to start asking questions. So I have who I am. I have what I have displayed and given, and it's my best. I've practiced, and it's certainly what I intended, or at least thought I intended in that moment, but then it was misunderstood. And then why do things get misunderstood? Why would somebody, like even with you, Alistair, most of us heard angry, but there were a couple of evils, and like what's influencing that? Why would some of us hear evil And what can we even do about something like that? Dante, most don't listen. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But so it's important to be asking questions. First you're paying attention to what you sound like technically, and you're paying attention to how you use your voice. Then the next part of that is what you're having people do, and also what people are looking at when they're with you, because that's going to inform it too. So let's talk about look for just a moment, because sound is a big part. And I have friends who are performers and singers, and they would argue that sound is the most important part. But I do think there's other parts to go with this. So how we look and how we show ourselves to the world in this virtual environment is also going to matter. And I bring this up because, well, the last 18 months, we've all had a look into our lives, maybe in ways that we didn't even want to in some cases, right? So here's the thing. I did some research on looking great on webcam. That's a whole nother if you want to get lost on the internet. And look, people said that Jimmy Fallon looks great, that his background is good, the way that he's presenting himself is good. Agree or disagree? Yeah, a lot of disagrees, and that's not what you think about Jimmy and himself, right? Most people, though, said that this was okay. I mean, I personally find it a bit busy, but I think also he works in entertainment, and he gets to maybe have that kind of, vibe. All right, and then this one was a complete fail. This background and how this poor weather person was displaying herself was a fail. Do you agree? I actually love it. I think it's great. I want these things to happen. It's awesome. Okay, but generally speaking, it's important to pay attention to how you look, including your background. And so we've got to look great on webcam. We've seen a lot this last year. We don't need to see it anymore. And so what does looking great on webcam look like, feel like, act like? It's the other way you can get lost on the internet, by the way, if you want to go and Google this when we're done today. Google how to look great on webcam, but I'll tell you right now, what I did is a quick view of it for you. Everything that I've read without getting far too technical, these are the 5 main things that we can do to look great on webcam. In fact, I would argue that you could do them right now. It would just take you moments. So please take a moment to read through these 5, and then when you are done, just send in the chat, "I'm done." If we had the feedback, what I would do is I would have you click on the green check or the thumbs up to let me know you'd already read it. Okay, guys, advancing your virtual facilitation skills. Little tip here, don't read slides to people. Guess what? You all read it faster than I could have ever read it to you. And you are fine with that. And so I do need to do something with this. So look what I now do here. If I was in a virtual training with like my less than 20 people, what I'm going to do is turn on the annotation tools, and I'm going to have people type their names next to the ones they want to talk about. That's why all that white space is on the slide. Right? And we're going to go in here, look, I'll put Jimmy in here with the professional background, okay? And I will ask them what questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, perhaps you disagree. Which ones do you want to discuss? So I'll set up the point as I just did around looking great. I'll let you read, and then I'll ask people to choose what they'd like to talk about. So I don't need to go through and read all of these and tell you the world according to Kassy. Right? I can just say, which ones do you want to talk about? In fact, are there any that any of you want to talk about? I know there's lots of people here, but I might see a couple of these. And you know what I would do is I would have you come off mute, you'd ask your questions, and we would facilitate a whole conversation around all of these. Alistair, you've been doing this a long time. Are there any in here that are a standout for you that you want to discuss? Thank you, by the way.
Well, I mean, the one you've got it there as adjust the webcam angle. I can't reinforce how important that is. A lot of laptops have the camera in the lid, which makes sense. But when that lid is pointing up, really, up your nose, that is not a flattering angle for anybody. And you really want to make sure that if you're using a laptop, ideally you've got maybe an external camera that you can use instead. It's definitely something to think about. And then lighting doesn't have to be expensive, right? There's so many cheap options, especially during the pandemic, for LED lights now, where you can adjust the warmth or coolness of them,
Yeah.
adjust the brightness of them, and get some really great looks for not much money.
Oh, it's the truth. In fact, you guys, um, you might be interested in whatever lighting I'm using, whatever camera I'm using, and also the audio. And in the handout that I put together that goes with our program today, I've got links to all the equipment that I have, which is not crazy because tech is overwhelming to me. I'm far more interested in you. And so I have very simple stuff. I personally do have an external camera like you've mentioned, Alistair. It's just a simple Logitech, it says HD 1080p on it. It's very simple, very nice though. And I also have a very simple ring light, and then my headset is going. My built-in camera is exactly as you described. Dare I show everyone how awful it looks? Should I do it, Alistair? Switch to my other one so they can see it.
Go for it. It's the best way to learn.
Oh gosh. Okay, guys, I'm going to be really embarrassed here for a moment. My son helped me pick out this computer. He's like, Mom, this is a great computer. It's rose gold, by the way. My computer's adorable. Okay. And he said, it's great. My kid's a computer science major, so he knows. And he says, you're going to love everything about it except for the built-in camera. Hi, everyone. Really great when I type also. Not creepy, not creepy. I know, Nicole. Oh no. Yeah, okay, how do I get off this thing? Bye. So my son at the time, he's like, Mom, we'll get you a better camera. Don't worry about it. Karen, you recognize that? I know everyone's cameras are different, and they're in different placements. So the laptop that I had before this one, the camera was not in a terrible angle, but I did have to prop my computer up on all sorts of shoe boxes. So I'm currently working from several different monitors. I have the other camera situated over on the other side, and I make sure to look into it when I'm speaking to you. So there's that whole thing. And I think it's a bit funny, this last point about making sure that you don't treat the webcam as a mirror. I do treat the webcam as a mirror. So just saying, I have this advice here, but I recognize the truth of it as well. So these are some great tips to help you look better right away, paying attention to the angle, the lighting, and and how you present yourself to the world. Here's another thing to note. I want to just step out of in that moment going through a list of items, which is pretty common in training. I just want to reiterate that there's no need to read them out loud to people. Set it up. Set up the reason why you're bringing in these points or these steps or these images, and then let them read it for themselves. And what's great about that is you can just take a glass of water, have a drink of water while they're reading, and then mute yourself, let people think for a moment, and then let them use some kind of feedback or reaction or raise hand or something, or in our case we use chat, and let them tell you when they're done reading it. And Patty, if they're unable to read, then they probably have technology in place that's going to help them to hear. And so maybe there's alternative ways, like that would be a special audience and a special case for me. Like knowing that I had those folks in the audience ahead of time would be really important to me, and I would adjust my delivery for that purpose. Yeah, thank you for your point, and also thank you for the awareness. And so after they have gone through it themselves, where you're not reading to them, then let them use some form of the annotation tools, one of my favorite features in all of these platforms. And you can decide when you let people use annotation, let them choose what they want to talk about so they can then very nicely unmute, very safely, not with terror, unmute and be able to discuss and ask questions and in some cases maybe even disagree. And what's wonderful about it is that all of your preparation as a trainer or facilitator, you're going to be able to talk about it. You'll get to add in your thoughts as it comes up, but most importantly, you're going to lead with the participants. We talked in the beginning about advancing our facilitation skills is about getting to a place where we are centering on the learner. So let the learner lead. Make it comfortable enough for them to be able to do that, and then you can add in your subject matter expertise, your ideas, that great story. It'll find its way in, but let it be at the lead of participants as they ask for it or as it relates to them. Right, so it's really a wonderful way to go through any list of items. And I reuse this all the time, in just different ways. Do you like this? It's like I'm sitting here thinking this is like gold, and I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it on the weekend at Starbucks if you want to. But good. Yes, good. All right, so you're paying attention to how you sound and how that sound is affecting how people feel and whether or not they want to respond to you. You're paying attention to how you look and how things look, simplicity in the delivery of the shared screens and the slides. And all of this is going to be around what people are doing. What actually are they doing when they're with you? And when they do it, are you encouraging them to continue to do it? Great. Thanks for your chats, everyone. I really didn't read any of them. Right? Let's move on to the next slide for time. Right? We'll use the raise hand button today, and then I'll proceed to never notice it. Right? That's kind of the kind of things that happen where maybe we're asking for the interaction, but then we're not really responding to it. And so what I want to share with you in the next moment is once you get that interaction going, which is required and necessary, make sure that you're listening to it and then you're debriefing the process, you're debriefing whatever they have given. And so that's why I want to give you my never fail debrief process that I use over and over again. Are you ready? First things first, when you ask a question, don't start talking until people have responded. You need a moment to think. I'm going to demonstrate this. After I go through it, we're going to demo it so you can see what I'm talking about exactly. But stop talking for a moment. Let people think and respond. And then there's no need for you to reread verbatim every single thing that they just typed or annotated. I don't think there is. I think instead that you should respond to it by summarizing it. Note what came through. Find some high-level themes. If note high-level what kind of things are going on. Maybe note some themes so that you're demonstrating that you are in fact reading it and paying attention to what was coming through. Second, spotlight. Choose one of the comments and ask a person to share more about it. Like Tina Marie, that's a good point about credibility. Let's have you come off mute and talk about that. You don't have to, Tina Marie, but that would be an example. And then once Tina Marie responds, having another person respond to what Tina Marie had to say. And going through and looking at what that looks like and what that feels like and letting people respond to each other. And then after you've gone through facilitating that conversation, ideally letting them have conversations among themselves too, then you're going to bridge what was learned, what was discussed, and kind of wrap that up and connect it to whatever the next objective may be or whatever the point may be in that moment. Right, so I do this all the time, whether this be in a chat or on an annotation that I've used on a board, or once you come back from breakouts. It's okay. And I want people to know that this is for you and about you. And my job is to be listening to how you're responding and what you're giving, and then to guide you through thinking about that and how it applies to what you're here to learn, how it applies to the job that you need to do. So it might look like something like this. So here we are talking about pay attention to how you sound and what you look like, and then also the things that people are doing while they are here. Let's just take a moment to go back and think over the last 41 minutes that we've been together. What are some of the things that you have done in just this session today? Let's go to the chat for that, please, and thank you. It's really hard for me to be quiet right now, but I'm forcing myself. Before I look at your chats, is it okay that I was quiet while you were chatting? Let me give you that agree, disagree right back. Was that okay that I didn't talk the whole time you were chatting? Yeah. You don't want me to talk 24/7? I thought you did. In fact, you would probably rather that I didn't talk. You've got to hear the question. You have to respond to the question. You have to think about what you want to say. Then you have to go to the chat pod in this case and find the chat, and then you have to type. And some of you are going to be worried about misspelling words, and so your typing will be different. And then you have to press send or enter. All those things had to happen, which basically for me felt like a year. But for you, you were just thinking, right? And then having to figure out where to go in the technology too. And it's okay that I'm going to be quiet for a moment. I think I had to tell you that I was going to be quiet. You know, if I was quiet for too long, you might think there was a technical problem or that you got disconnected. So it's important that I'm there and I'm paying attention. Yeah, it's okay. Hi, Christina Mead, by the way. Nice to see you. And so then what I'm going to do is I would take a look now at all the things that were coming through in the chat. Now remember, we have hundreds of people here today, so it's coming through a lot, and it might feel even more distracting than what, in a virtual training where we've got around the 20 people, it's a little different. And I think, Eric, you mentioned around this is really great for the verbal interactions, and this is a great way to get people to want to come off mute in a really safe and comfortable way. Remember, we were talking about behavior and motivation, and I think it's really important in the virtual classroom that we really begin to work on making it feel comfortable enough and natural enough to just respond, kind of like what we do in person, where we're much more used to being. So there's all sorts of ideas coming in here, things that you have noted, which by the way, I specifically asked you this question so that you could get a note and be real specific around things that maybe you could decide to do in your own virtual training moving forward. I like it if we type it down or we write it down, we tend to remember it more. We tend to, not all of us, but it's nice to see all these different things. So you've got assignments. We got to read on our own. We got to use the agreement, disagreement. You're chatting, you're thinking, responding to images. I'm super interested in what Tim had to say about intention, being intentional about your voice, the image, and the content. If we were in a class, Tim, I'd be like, could you come off mute and talk to us more about that? And then, likely people would want to respond to what Tim said, and that would lead to a whole conversation there. We could probably have a whole class on intention from that point forward. And so it's just such a beautiful thing, all of your ideas and specifically you listing the different things that we have done here so that you could take them and put them into your own training. And remember this process, I put this in your handout, so no memorizing allowed, okay? Let people respond. Take a drink of water at that moment. Give them a moment to think and then pay attention to it. Don't just reread verbatim what they wrote. It actually kind of seems like you're not listening. From my perspective, when someone just goes, and then Alistair Lee said that the silence also takes intention. And then Christina Eden said, we are told to not have a very, if I go through and do that, it kind of makes me feel like when I'm the attendee that they're not really listening. They're just rereading it. And Christina, I know you're right. The silence due to the closed captioning. I know, again, you want to pay attention to how long you do it. And Christina, to your point, you guys, everyone with what Christina said in the chat, that's why I'm very specific about setting it up. And I'll even say sometimes I'm going to be quiet for the next minute while we send chat messages. And then they know exactly what to expect because I do want to be very respectful of everyone and everyone's circumstances. Yes, right. So it's important, but taking the time to let things be about people and then letting people know that you're paying attention to them. Because I do think, and I see this all the time as I'm coaching virtual trainers. Great, thanks for your chats. I saw that you all wrote them. So let me move on to my slide and what I have planned for you because that was just the quote interaction moment. Right? Be honest, you do that. We all do it. So let me share with you my mantra. I'm going to call this the virtual trainer's mantra. What did I just say that you could have said? Or what did I just do that you could have done? Be honest with yourself. Go back and look at your training and look at where you are taking control and where you can let go of that. For me, I could have said, hey, here's 5 things for you to look great on webcam, and I could have read them all to you, and then I could have said, what questions do you have? And that's how I'm supposed to phrase that, right? Raise your hand. And you all, I don't have any questions, we get it. Right? But instead, I said, oh, I did research. Here's the 5. These are the main ones you can do right now. Read them. And when you're done reading, we're going to talk about them. I let you choose how to drive that conversation. So that's an example of what did I say that I could have let you say? Because my stories, they matter, but they're not the main reason I'm here. You are the main reason I am here. And so I need to make sure that I'm including your experience into this. And it is how I will know if I've been misunderstood. If we go back to that image of the facial expressions, that's how I'll know. When someone says something completely different than what was expected, I get to go, oh, let me change direction. Let me rephrase that. And so paying attention to how you sound, not only technically, what you look like and what you're having people do. And when I say look like, I also mean what you're showing on your slides. Brings all of this together to pay attention to how people feel. And this is going to help us to advance our virtual facilitation skills and become the expert facilitators that let us do this job, that bring us to work each day. And no longer does that technology get in the way. Instead, it's fun, right? And it's amazing that we can connect globally. As a closer, which is one that's going to carry on after, page 9 of your handout, which we're going to bring up momentarily. I've been doing this for about 23 years and I've learned 10 things. Kidding. My top 10. I put it in the handout. What I'd love for you to do is read those top 10 lessons learned, choose one that resonates, and please connect with me on LinkedIn to tell me all about it. I can't wait to see what you think. I've got tons of resources available to you on my website, all sorts of documents and ideas and things to help you be a virtual training hero, just like my characters. And I can't wait for you to see all of those. And I think if we go over to probably right around here, look at that. The handout's going to be in here too. There it is. Alistair, thank you for loading that. My website's in the bottom right. And guys, connect with me on LinkedIn so I can hear what you think of page number 9. Thank you for having me today. Alistair, Alna, Peter, the team at Adobe Connect and Adobe, thank you for having me and inviting me to be here today. It was a real pleasure. And I am so excited to take any additional questions that may have come throughout.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kassy, for the wonderful presentation. Do look, I'm taking notes myself. No matter how many of these online sessions you do, there's always more room to learn and be better and improve. And, I loved your session today, and, seeing the feedback that we're getting and the engagement that we've had, a virtual applause to you. I'll physically applause here since I can and you can hear it.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for your time and the wonderful content. Again, folks, we will share the recording of this session along with all of the other breakout sessions that we've had in the e-learning portal. And thank you again, folks.